We're going to take a look at Norwegian Getaway Cabin 14619 and why I should have picked the cabin next door on today's episode of Cruising with Eric. Hello cruisers, it's your friend Eric coming to you from my home here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and today we're going to be talking about Inside Cabin 14619 on the Norwegian Getaway. It's worth mentioning that it's going to be the same for the Norwegian Breakaway. The Breakaway and the Getaway are, for all intents and purposes, identical. I'm going to tell you why I didn't like that particular cabin, why I should have picked the one right next door, and I think this is going to apply to picking inside cabins on all of the Breakaway and Breakaway-Plus class ships. So that would be the Breakaway, Getaway, Encore, Escape, Bliss, and Joy. Before I come back and talk to you, let's take a look at the footage we filmed of the room while we were on board. So here we are, this is the aft elevators on deck 14 here on the Getaway. Now notice we're going to go down this interior corridor. We're not on the port side or the starboard side. It's this little shortcut corridor, and that's where this room is. Let's take a walk. As you can see, it's only about 30 feet down the hall, and right here we are, cabin 14619. This is an interior cabin. I don't remember exactly what kind of interior cabin. I'll figure that out and put that in the video in post. So as you can see, this is not a large cabin by any definition. We did an interior cabin on the Viva in December, and it was much larger than this room. As you can see, you have your bed right here in the middle of the room, and the problem is that this room makes possible to have 4 people, if you can imagine 4 people in this tiny room, because they have these bunk beds that fold down out of the wall here and there. The problem is when you have these bunk beds here, that takes away all of this floor space. This is not really usable floor space. You have to crawl in and out of bed from the end of the bed, and I'm here to tell you, Jessica, who's running the camera right now, has whacked her head on that darn thing at least a half a dozen times during this cruise. We've been on this ship for about 8 days now. So that's the one big thing I really don't like about this room, is you lose all this square footage because of these beds. And I also think that this shows just how much money they're trying to make off of this tiny space. Here we have, under here, we have your typical cruise ship room, refrigerator, which is not, that great, not a big deal, but it's pretty much the same in every room. And as you can see, there's almost no desk space or counter space. We have this little shelves filled with all of our junk. We have some stuff here. There is this little stool thing right here that you can sit on. I guess you could sit there and do something. Again, in that inside cabin that we had on the Viva in December, and you can see that video here on the channel, we had a lot more counter space. There was a big counter underneath the TV, and there was a good sized desk. We don't have that in this room. We do have this little cubby hole right here where you can put some stuff, and you really can't hardly put your luggage under the bed because they've got the ladder and all the other nonsense for the bunk beds under the bed. Here's the closet. We brought hangers from home because they only have these terrible hotel type hangers here. There's a safe here, and there are some shelves here, but it's hard to get in here because you have to bend over and then whack your head again, and there's no light in here. So that makes these shelves not super great. There's a deep shelf up there where you can put a bunch of stuff, and there is a little magazine rack kind of shelf above the bed, and there are some lights above the bed. There are no outlets in that end of the room. So your only outlets are right here. You've got 2 US sockets and 2, I think those are UK sockets. So if you're the kind of person who needs power going all the way to the bed at night, you're gonna have to bring an extension cord or something, even though they won't like that. But they should put some power supplies by the end of the bed. Again, on the newer ships, on the Viva, there are USB plugs at the head of the bed. Let's take a look at the bathroom. The bathroom is pretty standard for a cruise ship bathroom. Just, for your typical cruise ship room, I think this would even be comparable to the kind of bathroom that you would have on a balcony on this class of ship. Your single sink, toilet, shower, some shelves to put all your stuff, And that's pretty much the bathroom. Nothing that exciting. And there is one little cubby hole here on this end of the desk where you can put some stuff. So I will say that this room, being on deck 14, we are directly beneath the buffet. We're almost exactly beneath the happy, washy people. And I would have thought that we would have had some noise from the buffet, but there has been none. We haven't noticed any noise at all. This place is kind of a tomb. It's a very quiet room. I will give it that. Personally, for me, the big downside of this room is the fact you have to crawl into the bed because of the things in the way, the bunk bed's in the way, and you do have a little nightstands. But again, if you put anything in the nightstand, you got to be careful when you like stand up after getting in the nightstand. You don't whack your head like Jessica has done at least a half a dozen times this week, and she's laughing at herself, and I'm glad she's able to laugh at herself. So that's all I really have to say about cabin 14619 here in the Getaway. I would imagine cabin 14619 on the Breakaway would be identical because the two ships are pretty much identical. All right, let's talk about why I picked an inside cabin in the first place. This particular cruise was a cruise in Europe. It was a 9-day cruise that only had one sea day. We left Southampton on the 13th of May. We went to Le Havre, France, then Bruges, Belgium, Amsterdam, had a day at sea. We were then up in Oslo, Norway, Aarhus, Denmark, Warnemünde, Germany, which is the port that's like 3 hours from Berlin. We were then in Kiel, Germany, which is the port that's about 2 hours from Hamburg. And then the cruise ended in Copenhagen. With that many port days and only one sea day, knowing that the excursions and other activities in Europe were going to be expensive, I said, let's save some money by booking an inside cabin. I still think that was the right choice for this particular cruise. Now, if I was doing an 11-day transatlantic that had lots of sea days, I would probably not pick an inside cabin. I would pick a balcony. That way you have some outside space and some daylight in your life. As you can see from the video we filmed on board, those bunk beds being there on the sides of the room were a real problem. That floor space was almost unusable. You couldn't walk on the sides of the bed because of those darn bunk beds. And also there was a bunch of stuff. There were some little ladders and some bedding and some other items that were supposed to be for the bunk beds that were under the bed. And that made it difficult for us to get our luggage under there, to stow our luggage. And also if you wanted to get your luggage out, at one point one of the luggages got caught on the hook of the ladder and we had to crawl under there and figure out what was going on. There was a lot to dislike about this particular cabin on the Getaway. Now there are inside cabins on the Getaway and also the Breakaway, and I would assume the other Breakaway class ships, that don't have those bunk beds in the wall. They're only for 2 people. And it's a different class of cabin. So let's take a look at the deck plan and how you can tell the difference when you're making your reservation so you don't make the same mistake I did. Okay, as you can see, I'm here on ncl.com/cruise-ship/getaway/deck plans. And we're here looking at deck 14, and the room we were in was right there. I'm going to zoom in just a moment. I do want to tell you that 14619 is what they call a category I4. Family inside, and that's what I've decided I want to avoid going forward. They have an inside cabin that only sleeps 2 people, but the family inside, that's the one that has the bunk beds that pull down from the wall, so that's the one I will avoid in the future. And one thing I want to show you about the deck plan before I zoom in, you can see right here, it's got the little plus sign and it says holds 4. Triangle means holds 3. So if I click right here, we can scroll down, and you can see right here is 14619. That's the one we were in, and it has the plus. The triangle has room for a 3rd person. I think in this little area, if I was picking a cabin again, I would probably pick 14611, 14631, or 14629, because those are the ones that are only for 2 people. And they do have a couple here, or at least one right here, that's only has for 2 people. You're not going to have those bunk beds interfering with what you're trying to do. If I go to deck 13, you'll see that deck 13 has quite a few of these as well. This is the same area. You can see here, this one doesn't have the plus or the triangle. Same with this one, same with that one. But these do have the plus. So I would not book those again. And going down to deck 12, and this goes all the way down to several of the different decks, where you're going to see these interior cabins that have the plus signs, means it's going to have the bunk bed. This square right here, that means it's handicap accessible, so if that's something you need. So there wouldn't be any on deck 12 that I would pick, mainly because I'm not sure what the triangle means, if that's one bunk bed or how that works, but the plus sign definitely means it's going to have the 2 bunk beds and going to be taking up all that space in the room and have the thing you can whack your head on. So pay attention closely when you're booking your room, because when I booked this cruise, I said, okay, inside, and it's like, oh, well, family inside is a little bit bigger and it's only this much more, and I went ahead and booked it, and I should have thought more carefully to avoid the whole bunk bed situation. But again, you can always take a look right here on ncl.com and find the deck plans that you're looking for. And you can go right here and it shows all the different types of rooms. And where is it? Right there, I-4, that brown one. That's the one that has the bunk beds. Okay, now that we've taken a look at the deck plans, you can tell those little plus and triangle and square symbols, and hopefully in the future, when I'm looking at booking an inside cabin and when you're looking at booking an inside cabin, we'll pay attention to those symbols so we don't end up with all of that bunk bed nonsense in the way, and hopefully have a much better time on our cruise. Okay, so I told you why I decided to book an inside cabin, told you why I was unhappy with the one I ended up having, and how to look at the deck plans and tell the difference to know when these inside cabins have these bunk beds that pull down from the wall and when they don't. So hopefully I won't make the same mistake again. You can learn from my mistake when you book your inside cabin on a Getaway Breakaway class ship. And until we meet again, may you avoid the Kraken and have fair winds and following seas. This has been a production of Cruising with Eric. Please like, share, and subscribe.